What, you said you had them on SIMV?
SIMV,
And
rated 20. They ended up doing 12. It was a 3-pound baby, so we did a pressure of 12 and 6.
okay, so that
And then they
doctors will call that 18/6.
Yeah.
Right. So
Except-
you know you need to add those two together if they order it that way.
originally they weren't doing that, and then we went down to 6, and we were doing 6 and 6, and then they went
So
back
that
up.
would be 12/6 if
Yeah.
you do them both at 6.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's do that. And I'm going to turn on a little bit larger leak here.
Which we had.
Yep.
What'd you do there?
I turned a leak on my test line.
Test long.
Because you're on a mask.
I didn't do anything with the circuit. I just
Okay.
manipulated my test lung so that we would have a larger leak like you're on the mask. All right, so when you go to NIV, this little LS pops up in the corner. And it's there actually for neonates on invasive as well because neonates don't have cuffs. If you're switching to, do you use non-invasive on adults at all?
Not really.
Not
Okay,
through the
all right, then
vent,
we
no.
don't need to even go there. Okay, so because leak sync is on, if I pull this tab down one time, make sure I'm on page 1, here's my leak information, right? So I have a 77% leak, I'm losing 1 liter per minute, and I'm losing 10 mLs each breath. So the ventilator monitors that breath by breath, and it adds that back into the circuit to make up for that leak loss. Does several things for you. One is, if you don't make up for this leak, and you have your trigger sensitivity set at 0.5, now they have to pull 1.5 liters per minute, or it's going to auto trigger. So the leak can really mess with your trigger sensitivity, but because we're adding that back in, it normalizes the trigger sensitivity. It also makes up for some volume loss that you would be losing out to the room. So it'll go back into the baby instead. So very robust, happens very quickly. Nothing you need to do, it automatically adjusts those things. So let's talk about the circuit disconnect. So what happens? Were you on a prong or were you on a mask? Okay. So mask is notorious for having circuit disconnects while it's still on the baby. So here's what happens. You put the mask on the baby's face and they go with their mouth, right? So air goes in their nose and out their mouth, and it will go there as fast as you will allow it. And the speed at which we are allowing it is the descents,
Okay.
10 liters per minute. So when you get a circuit disconnect alarm, but the interface is on the baby, the first thing that goes through your mind is, I have a very large leak and I need to fix that. And almost always it's the baby's mouth is open or the mask is cockeyed on the baby's nose. So fix the leak. That's the first troubleshoot. The second troubleshoot, if you cannot fix the leak, is you can turn the disconnect sensitivity up. Okay? So what was my leak right now? It's at 1 liter per minute, right? So I don't know if it'll let me go down past 1. It doesn't. Let me see if I can, I can make the leak bigger. Just open up this other one here. Oh, no, wait, I'm going to do this. So I'm taking this cap off. That's going to make the leak very large. Should, anyway. All right. So now I'm losing 2.7 liters per minute each breath, right? So let's just say for some reason I had my disconnect sensitivity set at 1. Circuit disconnect.
And that's
Okay.
exactly what it was doing.
All
Because
right,
then the
so
next breath would be
if I
fine.
turn this back up, we know the leak was 2.6. So if I turn this up to even 3 would work, but I'll turn it up to 3.5. We don't get that alarm anymore.
Still shows a massive leak.
Yeah, I didn't fix the leak. The leak is still there, right? I still got the cap off. But what I've told the ventilator is, I know that there's a leak and I know that it's this big and I don't want you to alarm until it gets over that. So if your baby becomes disconnected, you still get the circuit disconnect alarm. Okay? Now, the mask connects directly to the Y. So there's a very large opening to a large opening on the mask. Nasal prongs are different. They connect to the Y, but then they close down to very small openings. They don't allow as much flow to go through as a mask does. Okay? So you need to be careful with your disconnect sensitivity. If you do you switch from mask to prongs and back and forth?
We don't ever have them on long enough.
So it's just a nasal mask and that's all you do.
I mean, generally it would be
Well,
prongs.
sometimes they start with prongs.
We generally start with prongs.
This kid happened to be on a mask this morning.
So a nasal mask will allow as much flow, just like if I empty this off, it'll put 10 whatever this setting is. If default is at 10, right?
So if our kid was non-invasive with prongs, it would have been.
The
much
prongs,
for it?
the prongs, you have the opposite problem because they narrow down, they restrict airflow. Prongs don't put out 10 liters per minute. It'll never alarm circuit disconnect, even if you take the prongs off the baby's face. So you have to hook up the prong. You have to hook up the prong and let the ventilator push air out and look and see what the maximum airflow that those prongs are going to allow. And then you need to make sure your disconnect sensitivity is set below that number. Typically, prongs are somewhere between 6, 7, 8 liters per minute as a max. Somewhere in that range. So, as a rule of thumb, what we tell customers to do, you should always check it. On a mask, you put it at 10, and on a prong, you put it at 5. That's a good starting point for those, but then you have to assess what's going on. The prongs, when the baby opens their mouth, almost never allow enough throw. You hardly ever get circuit disconnect alarms with prongs, but you almost always get them with the mask because all they have to do is open their mouth and that flow will go in and out and through. So one of the big advantages that you have with NIV Plus is we added a 2-target alarm. So not only does the disconnect alarm limit have to be reached, but your PEEP also has to drop below 0.7. So 2 things have to be met before it alarms circuit disconnect. If the mask is on the baby's nose and they open their mouth, they will always maintain more than 0.7 of PEEP and you won't get a circuit disconnect alarm. The second advantage